In 7.1, we're going to talk about how to write about statistics. So the three learning objectives are: how do you compare and contrast when you're asked to look at a histogram, a box plot, and statistics. So let's take a look. When writing about data, your writing should be clear enough so that the reader can create mental images of them. So to do that, the suggestions are first to make a conclusion about your findings. After you've made a conclusion, you want to actually compare and contrast different data sets and look at their similarities and differences. So when we say compare, that means look for their similarities. When we say contrast, look at their differences. Step 3, you're going to use math vocab from your previous learning. So, sound smart, sound statistical. And then wrap it up with support your findings with either statistics or graphs. So the graphs we would be talking about would be box plots, histograms, our statistics, mean, median, mode, standard deviation, things of that nature. Now, what do you compare? When you're looking at histograms, you really want to look at the frequency and the relative frequency and talk about that. In addition, what you're going to get from this is you can talk about the shape of what your distribution looks like. Remember, that'd be symmetric, skewed right, or skewed left. When you're looking at box plots, you're going to want to look at the quartiles and the percentiles. Now, from the box plot, you're going to be able to see the center in terms of the median, and you'll be able to see the spread in terms of seeing the IQR and the range. The third thing are the statistical summaries. What you're going to want to do is look at the measures of center and spread. So from here, that's where we will compute for measures of center would be the mean or the median. Remember, measures of spread, where you're talking range, IQR, or standard deviation. And then overall, when you are talking about statistics, there's 4 things to talk about. And we tried it, the acronym we would normally say is SOX. So the S for SOX would stand for talk about the shape. And again, you can really see the shape in terms of looking at the histogram. We're going to say the center. And you can see the center of the data, either in the statistical summaries will give you the mean and the median, or the box plot, you can see the median. When you look at the spread, you can actually, again, go to the box plot and you can see the IQR and the range in that. Or you could go to the statistical summaries and get the standard deviation also. And then the last thing you want to point out, are there any outliers in your data that might be skewing your results? So what I want to highlight for this example is they're analyzing the heights of the NBA basketball and the NFL football teams during the 2007-2008 season. And they took all the heights and they made some histograms. They also made some box plots, and they have some statistical summaries. So what they would ask you is to write about what you're finding. Step 1, 2, and 3 here are going to highlight the 3 different components to write about. Step 1 wants us to look at the statistical summaries. Step 2 would say look at the box plots. And then step 3 is going to have us look at the histograms. So let's actually start with the histograms. So again, when you compare and contrast, compare means find something they have in common, contrast is something different. When you look at histograms, highlight the shape in particular. So I'm going to look at the histograms and say that the shape of the distribution of the heights for the NFL is somewhat symmetric, whereas the NBA might be a little more skewed to the left. Then when you go to the box plots, what might be good to look at? Again, we can get some good center information about median, and we can also get spread. So when we talk about the center, you could say for the box plots, that the median height for the NFL player is roughly, looks like 74 inches, whereas the median height for the NBA player is roughly 80 inches. So talk about the median. And then let's also talk about the IQR, or the range. Remember, the interquartile range you can see is from Q1 to Q3, so it's really the length of the box. So what you could say is that maybe this. Within this box, by the way, is 50% of the data. So you could say this for that part of dealing with the IQR, is that for the NBA, the middle 50% of the players are between about, let's see, 77 inches to about 83 inches tall, whereas for the NFL, the median middle 50% of the players, which is between Q1 and Q3, are between maybe 73 inches and 76 inches. And that would address some of the IQR. And then the last thing is when we get to the statistical summaries, is there anything we haven't talked about yet? So we talked about shape, we talked about the spread, we talked about the center. Maybe some other center components to talk about would be the mean. So what I would say for here is if you look at the mean height of the NBA, they're 79 inches tall, whereas for the NFL, they're 74 inches tall. Standard deviation, this is the only place we can get that. So this would be important to talk about too. So here would be the mean and standard deviation. In here I would just say, the standard deviation for the height of the NBA player is higher than that of the NFL players. So then remember, we've analyzed, again, the histograms, the box plots, and the summaries of the statistics. So what's our conclusion? Make a conclusion. I think our conclusion on here, we could say, is that clearly when we look at the heights, the NBA players are taller than those of the NFL. And the statistics that we just mentioned before would support this conclusion. So to summarize it, when we're talking histograms, let's make sure we talk about shape. When we talk box plots, median and IQR. When we talk about statistical summary data, the mean and standard deviation. So that would cover our shape, center, and spread. Be careful to look at the data. Is there anything about the outliers we should mention? We possibly could look at the histogram and say that the NBA might have an outlier on the low end, someone who's shorter than the majority of the people on the team.